Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in again for another episode of the Social Writerly interview series. My name is Sarah Van Cleef. I am the founder and CEO of the Social Writerly. I am so excited to be sitting down with our poet laureate of April, Miriam Kramer. Miriam Kramer and I go way back, not way, way back, but way back enough. Um, she is a poet and an artist. Her poetry has been heard in coffee shops across the country. Her poems have been featured in countless literary magazines, journals, such as the Variant Literature, So to Speak Journal, Freeze Ray Poetry, and others. Her forthcoming collection, Built by Storms, published by Write Bloody, will be released this upcoming spring. So I'm so excited to have you on here. Miriam's raw and vulnerable poetry teaches from the heart that every reader can relate to. And we are so excited to have you, Miriam, as part of our Writerly family. So thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this and being our poet laureate. So exciting to have one.
You so much. I'm just excited, if not more. Thank you so much.
So I think we should just dive in and we'll talk about your poetry. This is our first big poetry anything we've done at the Writerly so far. We've done a little bit of multi-genre, we've done some fiction, we've done some nonfiction, but you, Miriam, are our debut poet. So this is really exciting for all the poets out there and people who have been wanting to have poetry here at the Writerly, and also people who are afraid of poetry and they're like, I want to try it, but like not in a setting that's like scary. So I'm really happy that you're here to be sort of like the bridge to poetry here at the Writerly. So I was hoping that we could kind of talk about your work and what made you be drawn to poetry, and what kinds of poets do you like and are inspired by?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I wrote my first poem probably, in like elementary school. It was probably like an assignment or something. I still remember I wrote a poem about alligators, and how they always smile. It was like this really, it was sweet. I was an elementary school student, so it's this sweet little poem that kids write. But I remember having teachers who like told me I was good at writing. And that really mattered to me, like teachers make such a difference in people's lives. Like they really do. Like to hear that like as a kid, like, oh, like you're talented at this, like you could continue with this. That really changed how I felt about myself. So I felt like, oh, like if someone else thinks I can do this, like maybe I can. So like I always like had it kind of in my like back pocket that I wanted to do writing and that like I could do writing maybe. And then when I was in high school is when like it really became like I literally like I like to say like poetry saved my life. When I was in high school, like I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy in school. I wasn't happy in life. And I started writing poetry just to like get the feelings out, just to have a way to express my emotions.
Yeah.
And and then I switched high schools between sophomore and junior year, and at my second high school, they had a poetry club. And I met like people who, some of whom like I'm still friends with on Facebook, like people who like really changed my life, and it was like, oh, this is, a healthy outlet. This is something I can do that like is good for me. And, like I can meet people this way and I can learn more this way. So like poetry really, it started out as like, yeah, like just something I did for fun as a kid, but then like it really became like this healthy outlet for me that like I really needed. Like I really needed to rely on it, and especially in high school. And then in college, I majored in creative writing in part because nobody told me not to. Nobody was like, no, like do something marketable or
Yeah.
uh, right. So I majored in creative writing and I majored with a focus in poetry just because I love it. And, and then I didn't do anything with it for a long time. And I found my way back to it. Um, and have just been like committed to it since. So it's really like, and it still is a way, like poetry is not therapy. Obviously, nothing is therapy other than therapy, but like,
It's
it
close
is
to it.
right. It's a way to get some of those feelings out and process them. It's a way to healthily express yourself and really connect with other people. So that's really like how I got started and why I still do it, is because like I just want to be able to connect to other people and express myself in a way that I hope makes sense.
And that's what I really love about you, Miriam, because like I know we've met in the poetry community, which is like so amazing. And I love that you talked about teachers. And as a teacher, as well, I think that teachers really have a big job. And the reason why I became a teacher is really just that is I want to be there to support my students. There are so many bad teachers out there. And there's a lot of wonderful teachers, but there's also equally as much as not great teachers either. And so the fact that your teacher, do you remember her name or their name?
Don't, it was like third grade and I wish I remembered her name, but like I just remember how I felt. I remember feeling like, oh my God, like someone sees something in me. And that was
It's
huge.
awesome. It's huge. I mean, I had that same thing happen to me. I had an eighth grade English teacher who was like, I want to use your picture prompts as examples. And I was like, what? What do you mean? I'm writing a horribly script. How can you read this? But yes, she could. And I still have it like in a binder with stuff that she, gave me. And I was like 12. And it was a catalyst like you. And the fact that you started at third grade, like that's awesome. Uh, and to know for that long that you had that sort of inner artist knocking. Um, and we've had many conversations in other interviews with other, artists here at the Writerly about the inner artist and the importance of it, and the awareness of it. And so I think that we as writers have this like secret talent of knowing that we have this inner artist in us, and because we share our words or our wisdom or our feelings with one another, we give other people the opportunity to also let that inner artist in. So I love that. But you mentioned the poetry club, and I wanted to go back to that really quickly, because you and I met in a community. And there are so many communities out there. So I wonder if you could touch on like what community has done for you in terms of the poetry community. How has that kind of transcended from your high school poetry club to now? And how has that influenced your writing as an adult writer?
Yeah, no, I love that question because like community is huge. I mean, we wouldn't where would we be without it? Like I'd just be sitting in a room by myself writing my poems, like so, to have people who can connect through it is huge. But like I in college like started going to open mics and it was like, oh, like people, like we responded to one another. Like, it was like, oh, you find your people that way. You find people who you can connect with. And when I moved to New Jersey, um, gosh, I've been here longer than I've been here over 10 years and that's wild to me. So when I moved to New Jersey, I kind of like fell out of the scene for a little while. And then it wasn't until like 2016-ish that like I started going back to open mics. And I started going like down the shore to open mics because there's like a really good scene down there. And as you know, because we met there, and
Yes.
like um and that's where like I kind of like found my like performance voice again, that like this is what I love, this is what I want to do. I want to read poems. Like if I could just read poems out loud every day, I would, you know, and like met people like-minded like that, that like that's like what they love and that's what they want to do. And then when the pandemic hit, I found like a whole new community because I started taking online workshops.
Cool.
Shout out especially to Megan Falley, her workshop Poems That Don't Suck like changed my life. And I met people that like I never would have otherwise had the opportunity to meet because like it's Zoom, so you get to
Yeah.
like what you're doing, you get to connect with people all over the place because like it's virtual and how what a gift that is and how beautiful that is. And so I had the opportunity to like form a whole new community and like make new friends. And what that did, like I think the biggest gift that community has given me is like to learn that like talent isn't a pie, right? Like it's not like a finite resource. There's enough for everybody and like we can all be talented. We can all be, you know, or whatever you want to call it. We can all have some. There's no there's no like limit to it. And to learn, you know, like the more I feed into other people, the more I get back, you know, it's like the more we give of ourselves, the more we receive. And it was just like to know that like yeah, like I can be nourished by other people and I can nourish other people and like we can just like help one another in this way. And you know, the now that things are open again, like going back to open mics and like seeing a whole new scene that like these like younger people and new people and like it's so exciting to like see how the community evolves and how, you know, new people are finding their voices and like it's just it's beautiful to see. So like I think community is probably like one of the biggest aspects for me that like I said, like what would I be? I would just be sitting in a room by myself. How depressing would that be?
Yeah, and like,
And like
having no one hear your voice and hear your heart and soul and your poetry. I mean, I was so honored to be on that lineup with you. We were featured together and it was amazing. I hadn't been featured in a long time. And I'm a type of person where I go to the scene and then I leave for months and then I come back and they're like, oh, she's arrived. She's risen. Damien Rucci, shout out to Damien, um, would always say that to me every time I would come back to an open mic and he would see me in the audience. He'd be like, she has risen. And I'd be like, I just am really busy. And so then I started writing nonfiction, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter what you're writing. If you want to have a time to stand in front of the mic and tell everybody whatever you're feeling, then that's a place and that's a space that's so safe. And I think that's amazing that we have that here in New Jersey. And I know you said that you came here 10 years ago. Um, was there other where you were? You said there was a poetry club. Was there other open mics where you were out in New Jersey as well?
yeah, so I went to school out in Oregon, and in the Portland area. So Portland has a beautiful scene as well, and I just never like I was very intimidated, you know, I was very, you know, because I was a lot younger and I was really intimidated by like people and the scene. So I never really got as into it as I finally like allowed myself to here. So it's yeah, like you said, like it's so welcoming. It's really it's a beautiful thing that's going on in New Jersey.
It really is. And now I see that it's expanding all over the US. And I think
Yeah.
that the fact that I'm gonna go back to this too, the idea of um poetry being this universal language is something that's so interesting to me. That back in when poetry was created, and even like I love looking at women poets. That's something that I really am so like attracted to as a writer. And Sappho was one of the first women poets, talking about sexuality, talking about big heavy topics that weren't allowed. Even some of the poets, they had to disguise their names as men so they could be published. And I think that it's amazing how this concept of the written word and poetry in this in these forms have totally surpassed and transcended millennials to get to where we are sitting right here on the Zoom call talking about poetry. So I was curious, what are some poets that are influential to you, and uh, who do you always stumble back to when you need some inspiration?
Yeah, I love that. So like when I found spoken word poetry and like not even just like slam, but like artists who were like reading their poems out loud and like really had a presence on stage, like that really was something that like really moved me in a way. Like just hearing their voices moved me in a way that like not that it, not that like reading off the page doesn't move me, but like hearing the emotion in people's voices like always really like moves me like in an extra way. Um, so like some of my favorite poets are like from that like kind of genre, like Andrea Gibson. They are like, oh my
Yes,
goodness,
they are the best.
top level. Yeah.
Top
Yes, I
level.
love them. I love them. Their partner, who I mentioned, Megan Falley, is incredible. I love Sarah Kay. I
Sarah
really
Kay's so
love,
good.
oh, Sarah Kay. Oh my goodness. I love Neil Hilborn. Um, gosh, I love Buddy Wakefield. Anis Mojgani. Um, those are so, oh, Derek Brown. Yeah, these are those are probably like who I return to when I like really need. Um, I love Olivia Gatwood. Olivia Gatwood, the way she reads her work is just like, oh my God.
I'll have to look her up. I haven't
Yeah,
heard of
she's
her.
great. She's great. And her books are great too. Like it's not to say that like the again, the page is so important, but like the way yeah, the way people can just express their emotion in their voice too really moves me. So those are that's the list I can do right now, but I mean I could go on because I remember like not connecting in high school, right? Like I remember like reading poets in high school and being like, I don't want to read another dead white man, you know? Like
Yeah,
nothing, no,
exactly.
nothing against. We have predecessors, we came from, but like how I just didn't want to anymore, you know? So when I found, voices that were different than that, that was really monumental for me.
I think it's interesting too that like the poets that we read when we were in high school, middle school, all of these things, they haven't changed. You know, they haven't evolved. There are some teachers out there that I know that are bringing contemporary poetry into their classrooms. And I think that's so fabulous because it's about resonating with the words on the page. And a lot of these students, especially the younger ones, haven't gone through the war, haven't gone through, the hardships that they may be similar, of course, but like these children that are reading these poems have gone through the pandemic, and they're it's not it's although it is very much warlike, it's not the same thing. And so I think that it's important that we know that there are contemporary writers out there and that there are voices that sound like our own, and that there should be more of that diverse voices on in the schools. I'm hoping that's changed. When I was in school, it wasn't that way, but thank God for poetry clubs and creative writing clubs and just opportunities to expand your scope of what you're reading. It's That's so important as a writer as well. So yeah, we maybe will throw some recommendations in the comments and the captions below of all your poets that you love. I love Sarah Kay, and even her written word. Like, if you can read her poems on the page, I've actually taught her like her poems in my classes when we're talking about not just poetry, but the idea of writing your life down, and that's something that she does really well. That's a really great segue too to your book as well. Built by Storms. This is your debut poetry collection, correct? Yeah. I thought so. I just wanted to verify. It's the cover is gorgeous. I know we've talked about that already. It's so inviting and so artfully done. I think it's something that draws you in as a writer and also as a reader. I would love to talk to you about your process, the excitement of publishing, and how did that look like for you? I know that everybody has a different process.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. So I do have I published three chapbooks before this. This is my like debut like full length collection. So two of the chapbooks were like limited runs, so they one of them like I don't even have a copy of any
Wow.
so I which is silly, but it's
So
the
now you know you're a
reality, you
rock
know.
star then. Rock star status there.
It's too funny. Um, but like so the book is being published by Right Bloody, and Right Bloody Publishing, like when I was in college, I brought some touring poets to my school. I like um and one of them was Derek Brown, who is the president and founder of Right Bloody Publishing. And they were all Right Bloody poets. And I was like, how old was I? I was like 23 or 24. And I was like, this is the publisher. Like if I could ever like make it to this publisher, like that's the dream or whatever. And so they host a contest pretty much every year. I think they're opening their submissions in April. And I've submitted before and not won before. Quite a few times, a few times, like probably like three or four times I've submitted and not, you know. Um, and then last year I wasn't even gonna submit. I was like, like maybe I just like maybe I'm not ready, maybe like it's not time yet. And then like a couple of days before the submission window closed, I was like, no, like I'm gonna like whatever, like what's the worst they can say? No, they've said no before, like no big deal. And so I put together how they do it is they have you submit five poems and then they choose some finalists and then those finalists submit 20 poems and a video. And so I got together my five poems and I was like, all right, like here goes nothing, And I got an email, months later that was like, you're a finalist. And I was like, oh my God. Like that's what? Yeah, and
Wow.
honestly, like that was good enough. Like that would have been good enough. I was like, that's it, that's fine. Like if I don't make it, if I don't get my book published, like someone else will publish it or they won't, or whatever. I always now get to say like I was a finalist for Right Bloody, like at the end of the day, like that was good enough. And so I submitted my 20 poems. I did a video, and then they uploaded onto YouTube a video of their final of the winners. And I remember like they said when they were gonna do it. I'm sitting there on Instagram, like refreshing and refreshing, like, is it gonna post? And when they said my name, it was actually Andrea and Megan who announced there were three winners this round, and I know the other two. I'm good friends with one of them, Bree Bailey. And when they announced, like, I just started crying. I was like,
Oh,
no way, no way. Um, and it was yeah, I was like pretty not it was June when they announced the winner, so I was like halfway through my pregnancy, so I was like really emotional anyway, and like yeah, it was like and that was really like moving because it was like oh my goodness, like these two things that I've worked so hard for, like to have like a baby and to like write a book, like
And have another
It's
baby.
coming another baby. It's happening, and so, it has been like absolutely incredible to work with them, and like it's yeah, it's so that was like the whole like leading up to it process. And like since then, like I had to get like another the book I think has 41 poems in it. So I had to like like um polish another 21 poems, and like there's an editing process, and I had a really great editor. So it's just been it's been surreal, really, like for lack of other words. Like it's almost like I still like it's coming out literally like a month and a day from today. And I'm like, really? Are we sure? Like it's really happening still. So it's just been incredible. It's a dream come true. I'm just I have like really bad imposter syndrome sometimes still sometimes that I'm like, no, like I'm gonna get the email any day now where they're gonna tell me like, just kidding, we're not actually publishing you. And it's
Like, no.
no,
It's not happening.
no, that's not gonna happen. So it's been validating for that, for that imposter syndrome, to know that like people, again, like someone saw something in my work that like, okay, like this is the path. This is the path that like makes sense.
Yeah, that's so amazing, and what a wonderful thing at the same time as having a baby and then having another one. I love that. Because poetry is like when you have a collection of poems, it is like a baby. You've taken care of these poems for years, I'm sure, and and they've come from you. Like you've given birth to these poems on the page. So I love this. I love this for you. I love that. I'm so excited. Like I can't tell you how excited I am for you because it's just huge. There's so many writers out there that have full collections on their Word documents, and I want to go back to talking about the imposter syndrome. I'm sure that there are tons of writers, including myself. I mean, I'm sitting right here and I have my uh, MFA thesis that it's like 100 and something pages. It's part of a memoir, and it's just sitting there like on my ottoman, like it's just there. They when you graduate they bind it for you, but it doesn't really go out to the world. It just kind of goes into your hands. uh and there's so many writers that are afraid to let their babies go, and let them be given to the world. And I was wondering how you went about that in terms of which poems you picked, and uh how you kind of constructed the book.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really cool question. So, it is like you said, like it took years to write the number of poems. Like I don't write as fast as maybe some people do. Like especially again, now that there's a baby, I write even less fast. So I um it wasn't like I was like, oh, I have like 300 poems that from the past few years, let me just pick 40 of them. It really was like um almost e almost easy to know, like, okay, these are my best ones, because like there wasn't like I said, there wasn't like a sea to swim through for me. Some
Yeah.
people like they do have like many, 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 many. And if I were to go back, years and years and years, there would be more to choose from. But like I knew I wanted it to be as representative of like who I am now, and like what's current, and like what is how I feel good about what I was choosing, and there are poems that even as recent as 5 years ago, I would say like, oh, that doesn't represent who I am anymore. Like, no, like I wouldn't stand by that piece anymore. So in that sense, it was fairly intuitive, to know like, okay, these are the ones. And I was even still, writing while going through it. Like I have two poems in there that are about my daughter who wasn't born yet, so I was still writing pieces as I was, collecting them. So, again, because I wanted things to be as current as me, as this version of me as possible. And it was important to me to have her in there somewhere, to have her represented in there somewhere. So so in that sense, some of the poems, and then I made the choice that I wanted some older poems as well, so there are some that are, several years old, and there are some that are from even my first chapbook, and but they are edited. They have gone through a new editing process. So for example, there was one that like got edited pretty heavily. It's called Dirty Laundry, and it's about a boy who um committed suicide in high school, at my high school, and it went through heavy edits to make it back into the manuscript, so again, even the older pieces, I wanted to be as I wanted to have fresh eyes on. So there was a lot of heavy editing, a lot of yeah, a lot of heavy editing went into this book. And that's the reality, like as that's the reality of writing. It's not just if you want, for me at least, if I want other people to see it, it's not the first draft, like that for like, and that can be hard too, because like we look at our heroes and it's like, oh, I've never seen Andrea Gibson's first drafts, but like, because to me it's like, oh, they're so good, but everybody starts with a first draft, so like having to do those heavy edits was definitely a process, and that was the process for me, was like getting them up to date, and current for myself.
Interesting. I love that because I've gone back and I looked at my poems because I stopped writing poetry for a while and then I started doing nonfiction. And then but I feel like poetry is something that always courses through my veins. I don't know if you've gone to different genres just for fun or kind of stuck in this genre, but I do feel that like no matter what I'm writing, poetry always is like a staple. Whether I'm writing metaphor or just writing academic work, it always gets sprinkled with some kind of figurative language, and they're like, "You're writing like a poet again," and I'm just like, "I don't care. This is who I am." So, have you experienced that as well? If you've gone on to different genres,
Yeah, like I've tried writing. I would love to get more into like creative nonfiction. I even have a book. I don't know if you've read it in your travels of creative nonfiction, called Tell It Slant, which is
I've heard
it's a
of it.
really good,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it's a great craft book, but it's for creative nonfiction. And there is always a tinge of poetry within whatever gets written. There's always some metaphor, there's always some, you know, not flowery per se, but you get the poetry language.
yeah,
And yeah, and I honestly think I think because of the like the constraints of poetry, that like I know you and I have talked about, that like a poem usually isn't 10 pages long. It's usually, 2 pages long, 1 page long. Um, because of like how specific and careful we are with our word choices, like I think poetry lends itself to other genres. Like if you're a poet, you're gonna be, you have a leg up, to be
yes.
good at other genres, I think.
I tell that to all of my students, especially at the Writerly. I say, if you write poetry and you like to write poetry or you read poetry, you're going to be a better writer for it. And I truly believe that. And I don't know if that's like crass or radical, but I do feel that way, because poets, I feel, have this like superpower where we can like put, and this actually came from when I was like an undergrad, taking, I mean, I also got my bachelor's in creative writing, and the creative writing teachers, I'm sure you too, have they said, you have to put the magnifying glass on your life. You have to put the magnifying glass on the moment. You have to press like the slow mo button on your life and really like just become so immersed with the five senses that you just become so aware everywhere you are. I don't know if you feel that way too, but when I'm out, like, I remember the smells of things, and the movements of people's hands if they're cooking, or if they are, or how they're speaking to me. uh, Not just what they're doing, but how they're doing it. And I think that that goes across any genre, whether it's the academic essay, to the narrative, or just writing poems that are so connected to you that you're so aware of your observation of the world. So yeah, so I
Agreed.
wanted to just quickly talk to you about your style of writing. I know that you said you were a free verse poet. Um, what does that look like to you, and why that style? And how did you find your style? I would love to know that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think like a lot of people, like when I was a lot younger, like I thought poetry rhymed. I thought like all poetry like rhymes, right? Like it's just that's what poetry is. It's rhyming. And there's nothing wrong with rhyming poetry. Like it is not how I write, but it serves a purpose, and it can be very, effective. Why I love free verse so much though is because like it allows me to choose the right word as opposed to just the word that rhymes. Like with rhyme, I feel like I'm really limited to my word choice and my diction and and there's just so many limitations. And with free verse, it's like, well, blue and true rhyme, but I don't want it to be blue, or it wasn't blue, or it wasn't, and so it just allows me more, literally like it allows more freedom. It allows more, and in that it allows me to be more honest, I think. It allows me to be more, because it is important to me to write work that is true. And in fairness, because it is my life, my truth of what happened might be different than my mom's truth or my brother's truth or my best friend's truth, but but it is important to me to write what is true to me. Um, and that I think is part of why I am so, um, yeah, just in love with like the freedom of, well, it doesn't have to rhyme. It doesn't have to look any type of way on the page. It doesn't have to, in that, like, it doesn't have to, yeah, have, you know, um, like I love a form poem, but it doesn't have to be a sonnet. It doesn't have to be, so in that sense, that's really how I got there. And I think learning about spoken word helped me with that as well, because it was like, okay, like there are internal rhymes and there are slant rhymes, and that's what these people are doing, but they're not like rhyming every last word. They're not like, yeah. So, I took big inspiration from that like, I don't have to do that. I can be free to write however makes the most sense for me.
Definitely. I also think that like too, especially when you're starting to write poems or you're learning poems in school, they don't teach you, they teach you the forms. And then people are like, "Ah, I don't know how to do that," or "I'm confused with meter or rhyme scheme." And I think that when writers and poets get the opportunity to just like, here's my soul on the page in verse, I think that's a wonderful way to express yourself. And I mean, I've talked to poets for like years. I feel like I've been talking to so many poets throughout my career, and some people say I love form because it gives me constraints, and then I also have people who say like you, Miriam, where it's like I love the freedom, and I love the fact that there are so many different kinds of poets out there. I just actually went to a poetry reading. It was poetry and nonfiction last week, and she was talking about how poetry can look however way you want it to look, and I think that's another level too of like artistry in terms of being a poet. When we're writing prose, it's writing across the line, big long, sometimes big long sentences, sometimes not. But I love the fact that in poetry, you can write choppy lines. You can write one word on a line. You can write it in caps. You can write it in bold. You can. It's like painting, and I love that about poetry. And so I think that the idea of free verse kind of lets people just sculpt with words, and that's so fun to me. I don't know if you feel that way too, but I mean, based on you, as I know you, I know that I'm sure that's sort of how you kind of process it too. Um, I want to quickly talk to you about your upcoming masterclass, poetry for a purpose, writing from your soul. And I know you've been talking about word choice, and I know that that's a big thing for your masterclass as well. So, what made you pick this topic, and what are your hopes for the masterclass?
I love that. Thank you. So one thing that like I know I do well is write, like I said, like I write my truth. I write from my heart. I write from my soul, like like you're saying, like and that is something I feel I can offer to other people. Like I don't want to teach something I don't know, I can't teach you. I'm not going to teach you how to rhyme. I'm not going to teach you how to, do something that I'm not good at, or something that I haven't done. So for me, like where I feel, I think that people relate to my work so strongly, and I think that my poetry resonates because I am honest in my work and I tell my vulnerable truth, and I'm not afraid to be vulnerable, so I really want to offer that to other people that like, yes, vulnerability is a strength. Like, yes, vulnerability like is how we connect to one another. So so I'm really excited to bring that to a space and really I'm what I'm hoping for most, I'm not necessarily I don't care at the end of the day if you leave having written your favorite poem or your least favorite poem. Like, I want you to feel like you've connected with other people and you shared a piece of yourself. Like that's maybe not going to be like, and even if you walk away like, oh, this is the worst poem I've ever written. You know what? You still wrote a poem, and with a if it doesn't feel like the best one you've written yet, you can make it the best one you've written yet. Still, like I said, like we were talking about first drafts. Like my first drafts are not always good. In fact, they're usually not very good. But like I can
Either.
take that, yeah, right. I can take that and I can make it into something. And if I've written something honest, then I believe it's worth bringing it to the next level. So I want people to walk away having connected with one another. I want people to walk away with hopefully a new poem. I want people to walk away, feeling really maybe like aware of themselves on a different level than they entered the space on. Like I'd love for us to talk about hard things together, and share with one another that like we don't have to talk about the hardest thing you've been through, but like maybe this is something I've been through and this is who I am because of it. So that's what I'm excited for is like I've been saying, like for me, poetry is a way to connect to other people, and I want to offer that to other people that like we're gonna connect with one another today.
I'm so excited. I'm going to be there. So I'm excited to get back into that sphere of writing poems. And that's going to be on April 24th from 7 to 8:30. And that's going to be on Zoom. And also the invitation or the signups for that is also on our Eventbrite page as well as our website. So if you're listening to this and you want to sign up for that, definitely check out the socialwriterly.com. Also, I wanted to talk to you about your poetry contest. This is so exciting, especially because you won the contest to get your book published. And so now this is sort of like the next phase of now you are the judge. So, what are your hopes to see out of that? This is the first time we're ever doing this. So, we've done challenges in the past, but the idea of a contest and getting that poem published on our socials are awesome, and just getting your word out is great. So what are you hoping to see from the submissions?
Oh, I love it. That's such a good question. These are all such good questions. I just want, again, like I want you to share a piece of yourself, like, and again, like it doesn't have to be the scariest part of yourself. It doesn't have to be like, but I want when I read the poem, I want to go, oh, I know this person a little bit better now, or like, oh, I feel, like, or I want to know this person better now, or I'm moved, by, like that's for me like another point of poetry is to move people, so like I want to feel moved in some way by the poetry. And I know I will. I'm sure I will. I'm so excited to read these poems.
I'm so excited for you. I mean, it's from what we've gotten so far, it's incredible the amount of talent that's out there. I know it's probably going to be a hard decision for you to pick a winner. The winner is going to get a free masterclass with you. So I wish I could submit myself. So we're just about almost out of time. Just one final question about just you as a writer. Where can we find you on socials, or and where can we find your pre-order for your book?
Yeah, yes, please find me. So my social media is all the same. Instagram, I guess it's called X now. I don't post much on there, but I am on there. And Facebook are all the same. It's Myriad Words, but Myriad with an I. So instead of a Y, because Miriam. So like the first three, well, no, the first five letters of my name with then a D. So Myriad Words
Okay,
um is where you can find me. I'm sorry, that's a little bit
we'll post it too, so
cumbersome.
don't
Yeah, it's a
worry.
little cumbersome.
It's okay.
And then similarly, that's my website, just myriadwords.com. And that has a link to the Write Bloody website where you can pre-order my book. It is, or if you just want to go to the Write Bloody, it's Write WRITE Bloody. Um, they have a website. It's a beautiful website, and you can search Built by Storms and you'll find it. Um, or again, you can go to my website and there should be like a pre-order here link that'll take you to their website.
And you can also find our that site, the Right Bloody, on our socials as well, and
Yes.
also on our website, thesocialwriterly.com. All of everything about Miriam is on there as well. So if you are having trouble and you can't find her, just go to us and we will take you there to Miriam. We'll take you there, and you'll be able to contact her if you have any questions, or you could submit your poems to us, and then they'll get to her. But thank you so much, Miriam. This was a fabulous conversation. And thank you for being part of our writerly family. When I decided that we were going to have a poet laureate, you were the first person that came to mind because your writing is so inspiring to me. Your journey as a writer is unbelievable. And I know we have a lot of mutual connections together, but being at that poetry reading with you so many years ago, uh, has stayed with me all these times. So I really want to just thank you for being a pillar here at the Writerly, but also a pillar in my writing journey as well. So it really means a lot to me. But yeah, so if you are interested in being part of the Writerly, you can check out our website. It's thesocialwriterly.com. We also are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on TikTok. We are also have a YouTube channel where you could find this interview and many other interviews we've done in the past and any upcoming ones that we're going to be doing in the future. So make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all of our socials. And again, thank you so much, Miriam, for taking the time to talk to us about you and your upcoming achievement for your book. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This has been just the highlight of my week, my month. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I will hope to see you soon.